welcome to the very first episode of the Fear the Babe podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Morales, and I'm really excited to bring you guys this here today. This has been a project that I've had in mind for many years, and I finally have the time to execute it. So the goal will be every Monday, there will be a new podcast, Fear the Babe podcast, uploaded. That might change in the future. It might go to Mondays and Fridays, Mondays, Wednesdays. We'll see as we move forward. But as for right now, every single Monday, I'll be uploading a brand new podcast. This is the first time you guys have ever heard me speak, so we're going to talk about things like the offseason recap. That's going to be one of the main three big topics I talk about. Offseason recap, we're going to talk about the players who left the Bucs, the players who re-signed with the Bucs, the players that Bucs acquired in free agency. We're going to talk about the whole situation with Liam Cohen ghosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're going to talk about the draft that was recent. And we're going to talk about the second big topic I want to talk about are the position battles. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a lot of quality depth in a lot of positions, and so much depth that you might have Jamel Dean be a backup at this point in his career. So we'll see. We'll talk about that later on. And lastly, I want to talk about the schedule. So I'm going to predict, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to do really well this season. We'll see later on how many wins and how many losses I have them earning later on in the show. But for right now, I want to start off with the offseason recap. So the offseason starts off, of course, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in round one losing to the Washington Commanders and losing to Jaden Daniels. After that loss, you have fans calling for the firing of head coach Todd Bowles and wanting to promote Liam Cohen. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course, didn't do that. But the Buccaneers were and did lose Liam Cohen. So what happened was the Buccaneers, they want to give him, they know he's going to be a hot commodity as a potential head coach somewhere in the league. So they give him the opportunity to get a pay raise. But he never signed the pay raise. What happened was he was in the running for the Jacksonville Jaguars position. What the report was that he backed out. But then all of a sudden you have the firing of their general manager, Trent Baalke. And after that, he kind of ghosted the Buccaneers. Supposedly they didn't hear from him. The report was that they called him multiple times. He didn't pick up the phone. Where was he? Well, he was in Jacksonville talking to the Khan family, and he ended up signing a deal with the Jaguars to become their new head coach, Mr. Duval, like the meme had. But the Buccaneers lose out on Liam Cohen, and for the second year in a row, last year you had Dave Canales as the previous year you had Dave Canales as the offensive coordinator. He does such a good job with Baker Mayfield that he gets the Panthers head coaching position. Then this year you had Liam Cohen get the offense to a really good position. I believe it was top 5 offense. We had a good running game for the first time since when Doug Martin, those Doug Martin days. But he does such a good job that he gets a promotion to become the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for the third time with Todd Bowles, they're looking for a new offensive coordinator. So what's going to happen is they're going to interview internal, external candidates. But the guy who stuck out the most to them was the last year's third down specialist and pass game specialist coordinator, Josh Grizzard. Josh Grizzard, he's a former Yale graduate. He worked under Mike McDaniel, who I think is one of the smartest offensive minds in football today. I love his pre-snap motion, everything he does, misdirection, everything he does there with the Dolphins offense. But they bring in, they just promote Josh Grizzard as the new offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we'll see at the end of this year if Todd Bowles is looking again for who his next offensive coordinator would be. But Grizzard, he was the third down specialist, as I explained, and he had a 51. The Buccaneers last year had a 51% win rate or conversion rate on third down. And third down is the money down. You need to win those third downs to be able to move on and continue, your drive. And 51% conversion rate, win rate on third down, that ranked them number one. They're the best offense in the league in converting on third down. So really good props to everybody involved, but especially Josh Grizzard as the third down specialist. So when the Buccaneers are moving on from Liam Cohen, they're not necessarily dropping off too much, at least, in Josh Grizzard. I think he's going to do really, really well as an offense coordinator for Tampa. We have the loss of also John Spytek, who was, Jason Licht's right-hand man for many, many years here in the Buccaneers front office. He goes on to Las Vegas to become the Raiders general manager. And I believe that he's going to do a really, really good job there. He's one of those guys that if Jason Licht ever retired, I would advocate for John Spytek. I think he's a really, really, really smart guy. He understands how to build a team. I think he's going to bring what he learned in Tampa and build that over there in Las Vegas. After the draft, the Buccaneers promoted Rob McCartney to the assistant general manager position, who Mike Greenberg is also the assistant general manager and cap wizard. He finds a way to keep our own. That's always very important when you're building a team. And Mike Beal also promoted to the vice president of player personnel. So we still have a lot of strong talent internally if Jason Licht decides to retire, which I don't think is any time now. But you always want to have a succession plan. If this guy leaves, somebody internally will step up, because Jason Licht has done an amazing job. He's really one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, why the Buccaneers have consistently won the NFC South and have been a playoff contender and a Super Bowl contender. I believe they may be this year. Let's go on to now free agency, and we'll start off with the players who left the Buccaneers in free agency. With the departure of Liam Cohen, you also have the departure of Robert Hainsey to Jacksonville. He'll become their starting center, snapping the ball to Trevor Lawrence. He gets a 3-year, $21 million deal, $13 million guaranteed. So really the first 2 years, something the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Mike Greenberg love to do, have those first 2 years guaranteed, that third year not. So you can move on if it doesn't work out. You have Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. So he goes on to the Cleveland Browns. So JTS reminds me of Noah Spence. If you guys remember Noah Spence from, at this point, it feels like many, many years ago. But they have all this physical talent. They have all the potential. But they can never get to the quarterback. They can never finish. And as an edge rusher, if you cannot get to the quarterback, you're not going to get paid what you might want to get paid. And the Buccaneers decide to move on. He's still a young man. He's still a young guy. He still can turn it around. But as of right now, the Buccaneers decided they're okay moving on from JTS. The Buccaneers also lost their swing tackle, Justin Skule. He goes on to Minnesota. Minnesota also signed Tavier Thomas, who was a special teams ace for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the final key departure for the Buccaneers in free agency was KJ Britt, who started many games this year because of the injury Savasier Dennis suffered early on in the year. But KJ Britt, I don't think the Buccaneers are losing much here with the departure of KJ Britt. He was a liability in the pass game. He was really good in the run. If you need somebody to stop the run, that's your guy. But a real big liability in a pass game. Couldn't really pass cover. Couldn't keep up with tight ends. The Buccaneers, we're going to talk about some guys at one guy, Anthony Walker Jr., who the Buccaneers added in free agency. I think they'll be okay with this loss here. So now, who did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers re-sign? So it starts off with Chris Godwin. That was the main free agent prospect that the Buccaneers had to sign. And I'm filming this on Monday, June 9th. And earlier today, this morning, there was a report. Chris Godwin had a story where the New England Patriots and one other team, I can't remember their name, but one other team were offering $30 million a year to lure him away from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He talked with his wife. He decided that Tampa was the best place for them. So he decides, instead of playing for $30 million a year somewhere else, he decides to play for the Buccaneers for $22 million a year. He signs a 3-year, $66 million contract, $44 million those first 2 years guaranteed. Now, will he be ready for the first game of the season against the Atlanta Falcons? That will need to be seen. I think if he's not ready for game one, the Buccaneers, with their depth at wide receiver, are going to be okay with that. But of course, it would be great if you have all your starters ready for week 1, and hopefully he's ready before that to kick off the rust, and he's fully prepared for the season here. I think he's a great guy. He's a very physical guy. He's a willing blocker. I think that's what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers really like. He's a consistent hands catcher. He does everything you want. He's a pro, a pro's pro. Next, you have another pro's pro. You have Levante David. At this point in his career, he's doing these 1-year deals. 1 year. Is this the last year for Levante David? We'll have to see. I feel like this is probably his last year. Father time catches up to everybody. You want to leave maybe a little bit before Father time fully gets you, but he's an all-time Buccaneers great. He's going to go down as one of the greatest Buccaneers of all time, and I believe that he should be wearing a gold jacket one day. I think he's the second best linebacker to ever play for the Buccaneers, if not the first, him and Derrick Brooks. The Buccaneers were able to keep all 5 of their offensive linemen together with the re-signing of Ben Bredesen, 3 years, $22 million deal, $12.5 million guaranteed. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, the Buccaneers finally have a run game again with Bucky Irving. It's good to keep that continuity together, all 5 of your offensive linemen together. I think it's good for the guy right to his right, Graham Barton, who was a rookie last year, coming into his second year now. And Barton have stated before, pretty recently, that Ben Bredesen and Robert Hainsey were 2 big mentors for him in that rookie year. He would get to keep one of those mentors at least to his left in Ben Bredesen as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers move forward, and hope to have the same success that they had last year in the run game. The Buccaneers, they re-signed Anthony Nelson, edge rusher. He's a quality depth piece. It was a 2-year, $10 million deal with $12 million, possibly that max number with incentives. I think he does everything you want a backup edge rusher to do. Now, the Buccaneers also have Chris Braswell. We brought in a rookie who I'll talk about later on. Hassan Reddick, who we'll talk about also pretty shortly from here. But Anthony Nelson does everything you could possibly want. He's not flashy by any means, but he gets the job done when you call his number. I really like this re-signing here. Greg Gaines, quality depth, I guess, here at defensive line. Maybe Elijah Roberts can be somebody who competes with him to get more playing time there, but he's really also that backup nose tackle when Vita Vea goes down. Kyle Trask, we have the re-signing here of Kyle Trask, 1-year deal. We still do not know what can Kyle Trask do at the NFL level. I think at this point, the Buccaneers don't want to see what he can do at the NFL level, because if he's in the game, barring some kind of blowout or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are able to sit all their starters, if he's in a game, if Trask in a game, that means something happened to Baker Mayfield, and it's already tough to get Baker Mayfield off of the field, and if he's really off the field for an extended period of time, something pretty bad happened to your QB1. You never want your QB1 going down. But Kyle Trask here, he'll compete with Michael Pratt later on. We'll talk about that for the QB2 position. Probably a pretty good chance they were winning. You have Sterling Shepard, who, when this signing occurred, you're like, okay, he could be a wide receiver 4 or 5. At this point, is he going to be wide receiver 6? Are the Buccaneers going to keep? I don't think so. But 7 wide receivers. What's going to happen here with the veteran Sterling Shepard? We'll talk about that battle for the wide receiver 5-6 position later on. I think this is a good re-signing here. Bryce Hall. The Buccaneers now, I feel like, have a lot of quality at the cornerback position. Very similar to what they had when they won the Super Bowl with Sean Murphy-Bunting and Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean. Those guys, they are the grave diggers. But the Buccaneers have 4 guys who you feel okay with if they need to come into the game. Really good. So really good depth there. Kayvon Merriweather, safety there. C.J. Brewer, good depth. Eric Banks, defensive line also there. So let's move on now to who the Buccaneers acquired in free agency. And the biggest one, the key name, of course, is Hassan Reddick, who he's a sack master. He's had multiple seasons with double-digit sacks. Last year, he wasn't productive whatsoever. He had the whole situation with he gets traded from the Eagles to the Jets. He's hoping for this big contract. They don't give it to him. He doesn't show up. He shows up later on in the year, but really a mess of a season for him last year. I think he wants to redeem himself and show the NFL, whether it's here in Tampa or somewhere else, that he is still a quality, top-notch, top-tier pass rusher in this league. So we'll see what he can do. There's been a big story so far, a lot of talking. He hasn't shown up to the voluntary OTAs. Is he going to show up to mandatory OTAs? A lot of fans are scared because what happened last year with Randy Gregory, no show whatsoever. I don't think you're going to have this situation here. I'm filming this on a Monday. Tomorrow's Tuesday, the start of mandatory OTAs. I believe he shows up, and if he doesn't, we'll talk about that next week, but I believe he shows up. I believe this is a non-story. The Buccaneers, they signed also Anthony Walker Jr. to replace KJ Britt. Kind of swapped there, kind of traded player for player. The Dolphins get KJ Britt. The Buccaneers get Anthony Walker Jr. He's had a lot of starts. He's a 29-year-old veteran. He's worked out. He's Miami-based. He worked out with Levante David for many years. He's worked out with him. They have a strong connection. They've always talked about the possibility of playing together, and they finally get to do so in what could be Levante Davis last year. I think this is a slight upgrade to KJ Britt. I think he's a bit better. Anthony Walker's a bit better in the pass game, of course, the KJ Britt. But he'll be one of those guys competing with Savasi Dennis for that starting inside linebacker position. We'll talk about that battle later on. You have the Buccaneers also acquired Charlie Heck. He becomes their new swing tackle, taking over for Justin School. Punter Riley Dixon. We released Camarda at the end of last year. Riley Dixon would come in. 2 years, $6 million deal. The Buccaneers also signed Kingdale Veldor, if I'm saying that name there correctly. This will be a special teams guy to replace Tavier Thomas. Not a real big, possibly big impact he will have on the defense. It's more of a special teams replacement for Tavier Thomas. Alrighty, so draft time here. So draft night comes around 1, and I, like many other Buccaneers followers, believed that the Buccaneers were going to go defense with that first pick. Donovan Ezeraku was still on the board, and that's who I was thinking, okay, probably that's going to be the pick here. But I think the Buccaneers surprised many by drafting Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver from Ohio State, from the Buckeyes. And looking back now, it makes a lot of sense, and the Buccaneers were dropping clues that if there's an offensive player that they really like, they'll go get him. And they did that. They did that. Todd Bowles talked about before, the best defense is scoring more points than your opponent, and that is a true statement here. We saw last year the Buccaneers went through that midseason slump after the Ravens game because of the injury suffered to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They're down to Sterling Shepard, Cade Otton being the top receiver, and Jalen McMillan being top receiving options. Now, if, for example, Chris Godwin can't come back in time to start off the season, Emeka Egbuka, Jalen McMillan, Mike Evans, Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard, they have a lot of depth now at the wide receiver position, a lot of weapons for Baker Mayfield to play with here. Now, I really like Emeka Egbuka. I think he's a more than willing blocker. He reminds me a lot of that new age slot receiver, that Cooper Kupp, that Puka Nacua, Chris Godwin, and he's a guy who is not flashy. I love his route running. I love his little head nod when he's running these routes at times to confuse the defensive back, create separation. But he's a guy who's going to get the job done. All right, he's a guy who he's had 205 career receptions in Ohio State, which you think about the wide receivers they've had there, many talented wide receivers, and he is the all-time leader in receptions at Ohio State. Mike Evans, when he came in, remember when Mike Evans came in as a rookie, first draft pick for Jason Light, he had Vincent Jackson to be his mentor. Emeka Egbuka comes in. He doesn't have just Mike Evans. He also has Chris Godwin. He has two of the best to ever do it. At least from a Go Jacket standpoint. And Mike Evans, we'll see what happens with Chris Godwin's career. But two really all-pro pros. We have nobody on this team who, when in the wide receiver position, you often think about divas, guys who want the ball all the time, and none of these guys are like that. Emeka Egbuka is not like that. He's a high-character guy. The Buccaneers love to go for character over talent. In this case, character and talent were there. He is like the Buccaneers. He's that guy. He's a great person. If you look at his interviews, I've seen a lot of things about him so far. Heard him speak. He looks like a great guy. He professional. He wanted to stay an extra year in Ohio State, help train those younger players there, continue to work on his game. I think the Buccaneers are getting a great prospect here in Emeka Egbuka, a guy who can potentially in the future, once Chris Godwin and Mike Evans depart the Buccaneers when they retire, a guy who can really be the wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 with Jalen McMillan. I think the Buccaneers have the future of the wide receiver room already in the room, with the top two guys being Emeka Egbuka and Jalen McMillan when those two, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, decide to step away. And hopefully that's a while from now, but the Buccaneers have those guys internally who can take their time to progress, to develop, to become the best wide receivers they could possibly be. You can't get in a better position. If you're a wide receiver, you can't be in a better room than being in a room with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Let's move on here to the second round pick, Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. Had a hip injury. If he didn't have the hip injury, many people assume he would have been a first-round talent, had that hip issue. But before the hip issue, he was really a ball hawk for Notre Dame. 9 interceptions between 2022 and 2023. That put him in top 2 for cornerbacks in the FBS. 19 pass breakups in 2 seasons. He's a he can play man coverage. He's a guy who's going to compete with Jamel Dean for possibly becoming a starter. We'll talk about that competition later on, but I really like this pick. The Buccaneers were confident enough. He did a workout before the draft. They were confident enough in his hip that it won't be an issue moving forward. He's so far in OTAs, he's been doing drills, he's been out there participating, so it doesn't seem like that's going to hinder him as the Buccaneers go into training camp and into the season here. Third round pick, pick 84, the Buccaneers doubled down on cornerback. Cornerback was a big position of need, and now it's possibly a position of quality depth and strength here for the Buccaneers. They go with Jacob Parrish from Kansas State, K-State there. He's listed at 5'9", 190, but a smaller guy. The Buccaneers have him at 5'10", 198, somewhere around that range. He's a smaller cornerback than you would normally assume the Buccaneers and Bulls would like. Normally the Buccaneers go for these long, lengthy corners. He's a bit of a smaller corner. He has 4.35 speed. And initially, I saw the selection of Jacob Parrish, and I believed, okay, he's going to be the inside, the nickel corner. He's going to compete for that nickel corner position. But the Buccaneers have stated he's a guy who's versatile. He can play inside, he can play outside. So he's going to be another guy who's going to compete with Jamel Dean for that key CB2 position, possibly being a starter from the get-go here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So two really good back-to-back corner selections, I believe. And again, the Buccaneers, all these guys that they draft, they understand, they go in with the mindset that they're going to draft the best high-character guys who, put the team over themselves. I think that's really important. You never want a divided locker. You never want a guy, not showing up because he wants more money, and it's causing a whole show. These social media outbursts that you see with other players around the league and in the NBA also. The Buccaneers, for the past few seasons, have gone through these mid-season slumps where they go through these losing streaks in the middle of the season, oftentimes because of injuries. Last year, the big injuries were, of course, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, missing them out for a few weeks there. But when you have high-character guys who put the team before themselves, you don't have a divisional locker. You don't have people pointing fingers on whose fault this may be. I believe that is the best way to mold a team. If I was a general manager, I would always go character over talent, but not saying that you draft guys who have character but have no talent. The Buccaneers selections, as you've seen here, they have talent. They're talented players that the Buccaneers also feel like are very, very good people. So you want to get that good combination there with the character and the talent. Fourth round, the Buccaneers go with the edge rusher position. They select David Walker out of Central Arkansas, a smaller school. He can get to the quarterback. Bit smaller, 6'2", 245, reminds me of in size Shaq Barrett. 39 sacks over 4 seasons, 82.5 sacks for loss, which led the FCS from 2021 to 2024. He has an elite PFF pass rusher grade over 3 seasons, each of his 3 seasons. So he's a guy who can get to the quarterback. He's a guy who Larry Foote, the outside linebackers coach, really, really loved. If you guys have seen that video of behind the scenes when the Buccaneers selected David Walker, Foote really, really liked the selection. He gave Jason Light a big hug. He said, "This is how you win Super Bowls." And I think this is going to be a very good. He will have time to develop. Nobody's counting on him right away. You have Yaya Diaby, you have Hassan Reddick in front of him. You have Chris Braswell. You have Anthony Walker in that room. Guys like Jose Ramirez, who we haven't fully seen yet, but you have a lot of depth in that outside linebacker position now. I really like this selection here. Fifth round, the Buccaneers go with Elijah Roberts, defensive line edge rusher. He's a very versatile player from SMU. He's a guy who can play outside. He can rush a passer. He's a guy who can also, mainly where he's going to be is on that defensive line, but he's a very versatile. He's an athletic guy, 6'5", 285, 4.78, 40 speed. I really like the comparison that Real Bucs Talk. Go listen to them. Go follow them. Go like them. Real Bucs Talk talked about Elijah Roberts as they comped him to. He's a guy who's kind of like a blend of Anthony Nelson and of Logan Hall. So he's a versatile guy. Again, you can have him standing up. You can have him on the line of scrimmage. That's where he mostly be. Very good athlete here. No 6th round pick. That was part of the deal with the Lions last year when we traded away Carlton Davis. We used that 3rd round pick that we got from them for Jalen McMillan. Really good. He got 8 touchdowns last year as a rookie. So no 6th round pick. So next pick was Tez Johnson, who when he picks up the phone for Jason Light, when he's telling him, "Hey, how would you like to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer?" He says, "What took you guys so long?" Tez Johnson, he's from Oregon, wide receiver, good friends with Bucky Irving, of course. He kind of reminds me a lot of Bucky Irving. He's one of those guys that he's hard to take down. He's already called that punt return position. He said he's going to be the guy there. Dynamic wide receiver. Smaller frame. He's 5'10", 154. So again, this was a big story that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they drafted the lightest player in NFL history with Tez Johnson, and with the undrafted free agents, we signed Desmond Watson, which is the heaviest player in NFL history. So they need to get a picture together. We got to see those two guys together here. But I really like this Tez Johnson selection in the 7th round. He would have been a guy who could have gone in a 5th, 6th round, higher than this. But again, he reminds me of Bucky Irving at the wide receiver position. A guy who is hard to take down. A guy who's shifty. He makes every play, look easy. His speed, he's 4'5", but again, he's shifty. He had 10 touchdowns last year, over 1,100 yards. Really good pick for a 7th round pick. I think he's going to be one of those guys competing for the wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 position. I think he pretty much probably makes this team. All right, guys, now let's get into the second major topic I wanted to talk about, and that is the key position battles that we'll see at training camp and play out into the preseason. Now, the biggest one, of course, is, like I've talked about before, that Jamel Dean CB2, quarterback number 2 starting spot. But there's a few other spots I want to talk about here. We're going to talk about, first, that QB2 backup quarterback position behind quarterback Baker Mayfield. You got 2 guys competing. You got Kyle Trask. You got Michael Pratt out of Tulane. these are two guys we haven't seen play out in the NFL, really. I think training camp will be big for both of them. Preseason, of course, will be big for both of them. But Kyle Trask being the veteran here, having more experience, this is going to be his 5th year in the league. I think that, I think he wins that battle. And the Buccaneers really like Kyle Trask. Again, we haven't seen him, and I don't think you want to see him at this point because, if you see Kyle Trask out there and it's now a blowout, something happened to Baker Mayfield. So I believe it was on the Peter Report podcast. If you guys, I'm sure you guys listen to them if you're listening to me right now, but go check them out if you haven't heard their podcast recently with Todd Bowles, who they asked him, I believe it was with the Peter Report podcast, but they asked him who would be, who are some players who would be really good coaches in the league one day. And Kyle Trask was one of those guys he mentioned who would be a really, really good coach in the league. So we've had reports, there's talk before early on in his career that he wasn't picking up on a playbook fast enough, I believe. Clyde Christensen talked about that possibly with him picking up the NFL speed and playbook. But at this point, entering year 5, he's a veteran, 27 years old. I believe he's going to win that QB2 position, and Michael Pratt possibly being one of the guys who gets cut, maybe can get him out of the practice squad. But I believe Kyle Trask will go into this season being the QB2. Now, you can say there is an RB2 kind of battle there between Rachaad White and Sean Tucker. The thing with Rachaad White, I liked him a lot until we got to see Bucky Irving. The problem with Rachaad, he can pass block. That's a good thing. He's the best pass blocking running back on this team. He has good hands. He's a good route runner as a running back. But he dances too much behind the line of scrimmage, and that's always been something that I thought was going to hinder him. And we saw it with Bucky Irving, who he give him the ball and he goes. He doesn't dance around the line of scrimmage there and behind the offensive lineman. That's been a problem with Rachaad White. He posted on Instagram. There's a video with the Buccaneers, and he said last rodeo, last dance, something to that extent. But this most likely is it for Rachaad White. So knowing that, do the Buccaneers try to give Sean Tucker a bit of a push? They'll probably compete there for that running back 2 position, but Rachaad White, I believe he's going to win. Again, he's the best pass blocking running back on this team. Bucky Irving tries, Sean Tucker, they try, but none of them can compare to Rachaad White in that aspect there. So if Rachaad White would learn to not dance as much behind the line of scrimmage, he reminded me at first of Le'Veon Bell, but it doesn't really work with this offensive scheme. He doesn't do it with as much, like rhythm and getting into the holes as quickly as Le'Veon Bell did. But with Rachaad White, if he learned to just hit those holes and run forward, run north, I think he would set himself up for pretty good pay raise next year. But we'll see what happens with Rachaad White. Maybe he changes his mind. Maybe the Buccaneers keep him. I think that 1-2 Bucky Irving, Rachaad White combo duo is really, really, really good for the team. We saw what Sean Tucker can do. He won NFC Offensive Player of the Week last year against the Saints. If you give him the ball, you give him the opportunity, he's a guy who can also he can do a lot of good things for you. Now let's talk about that wide receiver 5 position. Now, again, the Buccaneers have a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. Of course, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, the new rookie Emeka Buka. So 4 really, really good guys who can be, with Emeka Buka and Jalen McMillan, wide receiver 3s, possibly fringe wide receiver 2s at this point of the career on many teams in the NFL. We're talking about the wide receiver 5 position here. You have a lot of guys who would be competing for that spot. You got the rookie Tez Johnson, who again reminds me of Bucky Irving. But at the wide receiver position, you have the veteran Sterling Shepard, who he did enough last year for me to feel like, okay, he can continue. He could possibly compete for this spot. He stepped up when he needed, made a few bonehead penalties last year that a veteran probably shouldn't be making at this point in his career, but he'll be competing for that spot. Also, you have Trey Palmer, who needs to make sure that every day he wakes up angry, wakes up pissed, like he says, because he's in a position where, he needs to do everything he can to stay on this roster here. there's been, I've seen talks about possibly in other teams attempting to acquire him. I don't think any of those possibly have merit, but we'll see as we move forward in the offseason. You got Ryan Miller, who I think is a long shot for that spot. Cameron Johnson, and a guy who I like as more of a possibly a practice squad guy, and you have him develop. Garrett Green out of West Virginia University, a guy who converted from quarterback to now wide receiver. We'll see how that plays out in training camp in the preseason, but he's a guy that I really like. He has a lot of moxie to him. He's a real gritty guy. Was watching some film on him, and one of the announcers actually compared him to Baker Mayfield. He's a smaller stature guy, 5'11", 201, but he's a guy who I don't think he has any shot really to make that wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 6 position, that spot there, but he might be a guy that the Buccaneers want to develop on the practice squad, to have a guy who can play quarterback, so you have that kind of Taysom Hill type player with Garrett Green there. But for that wide receiver 5 position, we'll see how it plays out, but I think right now, Tez Johnson most likely has that wide receiver 5 position. I think the real battle here is that wide receiver 6 position with Sterling Shepard, Trey Palmer, Ryan Miller, Cameron Johnson, Garrett Green. That battle probably comes down if the Buccaneers decide to keep 6 receivers, which I think because of so much depth here, I think they do, and they don't want to lose one of these guys to another team. That battle will be between Sterling Shepard and Trey Palmer, that wide receiver 6 position. That is a very good battle to look forward to this offseason and training camp. But Sterling Shepard, Trey Palmer, wide receiver 6. Let's see who comes out on top there. Would it be the veteran? Would it be the young speedster? We'll see. And now for a very important starting position, the inside linebacker position. So last year, Savasi Dennis had that shoulder injury, took him out for the rest of the season. The Buccaneers, like I've stated before, have acquired Anthony Walker Jr. in the offseason from Miami. And you also have Deion Jones, who had a pick in OTAs, and Todd Bowles likes him. I think he's a very outside. He has an outside chance to get that starting spot, but I think he provides quality depth. He's a veteran. He's had many starts in this league. I think he's a big upgrade from KJ Britt. You got and the past linebackers that we've had here, but they're really the starting linebacker. That fight is between Savasi Dennis and Anthony Walker Jr. I think Savasi Dennis comes out on top. He's the opposite in terms of pass coverage to KJ Britt. He can really cover anybody. He has a lot of patience. He can cover slot wide receivers if they come across from him. He can cover tight ends. He's very good in the pass game. He can also get to the quarterback. We saw that in college when he was at Pitt. But he's a guy who Todd Bowles likes. I know he mentioned him. I know it's t-shirt like Todd Bowles mentioned. They're in t-shirts and shorts and shoulder pads. But he's a guy who really can shine if he can stay healthy. It's all about staying healthy for Savasi Dennis. Hopefully he can, because he can be a very good linebacker in this league. I believe Levante David told him that he might be one of those guys who can take his spot and become that next big linebacker, pass on the torch to Savasi Dennis. He's a very smart guy, high character guy, like we've talked about, that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers really like to acquire. But again, that's a battle to watch, and Levante David might go down. You might have these two guys, but the inside linebacker position is actually going into this offseason. You see it as a position of weakness for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but Todd Bowles has stated recently that he actually sees this as a position of quality depth. He really likes the inside linebacker position now. We'll see if they add anybody else, maybe undrafted rookie, a free agent. We'll see, but they like what they have if Savasi Dennis can stay healthy here. All right, so now we got this big battle here for the starting CB2 position. What would Jamel Dean? Will he actually lose his job this year? I think no. I think he actually keeps his job. I think what's better, having a rookie out there starting week 1 or a veteran? I think Jamel Dean will win that battle. He's facing Benjamin Morrison. He's facing Jacob Parrish for that starting CB2 spot. Again, Parrish is a guy who you would have thought, seeing him, that he would have been fighting for just primarily that nickel job. But he's fighting for the outside corner job too. He's going to compete. And who's going to be that corner opposite of Zion McCollum on this Buccaneers roster? I think to start off the season, it will be Jamel Dean, I believe. The important thing will be, does Jamel Dean stay healthy? If Jamel Dean goes down, and then one of these guys step up, let's say it's week 5. Jamel Dean goes down. He's injured. He's out for an extended period of time. He's out for 3-4 weeks. This is something that we've seen over and over and over and over again throughout his career. And Benjamin Warren, let's say, for example, he's the guy who the Buccaneers call up. All right, you're starting opposite of Zion McCollum. Go out there and go see what, let us see what you can do. And he plays really, really, really well, or just good enough. I think it would be hard to sub him back out for Jamel Dean, a guy who they know cannot stay healthy, and a guy who cannot catch those interceptions. I think the Buccaneers also want to play a lot more man coverage this year. They want to have Todd Bowles is going to want to have his guys closer to the line of scrimmage, have them play a lot more man-to-man defense, not this soft zone that we've been seeing, and offense is just tearing that apart. A big reason for that has been the Buccaneers can't get to the quarterback, but with the addition of Hassan Reddick, we got Chris Braswell entering year 2, Yaya Diaby entering year 3 for him. What can these guys do? Can they get to the quarterback? If they can get to the quarterback, that's going to help out the guys behind them. Make sure that these wide receivers aren't catching these passes. But again, I think Jamel Dean is going to win that position unless he gets hurt. We might have an injury in training camp. We might have something happen there. But I hope Jamel Dean can stay healthy, and I hope he can catch these interceptions. And I hope he continues to have success in Tampa Bay. I think he's a really good guy. He's a funny guy. He's a guy who, the Buccaneers really like, and can he stay healthy? Todd Bowles is a loyal guy. I think that loyalty is going to, help him out a bit, win that position. But ultimately, I think it's better to have a veteran starting week 1 than a rookie. But, things can change throughout the season. It's a long season. You have, hopefully the Buccaneers get to the playoffs, and you have, more games there. But I think Jamel Dean will keep his job, barring any injuries, or barring, one of these guys, Jacob Parrish or Benjamin Morrison, having an extremely, extremely good, productive training camp here. In rookie OTAs, rookie minicamp, Todd Bowles was asked, who was the player who stood out to you the most? Who was the fastest? I believe that was the question. Who was the fastest guy out there? He didn't say Emeka Buka. He didn't say Benjamin Morris. He didn't say Tez Johnson. He didn't say David Walker or any of the undrafted free agents that were there as well. He said Jacob Parrish, and Jacob Parrish had an interception there in those rookie minicamps. He's flashed. Zion McCollum has stated that he's a guy, he's all about football. He has a good head on his shoulders. So he'll be a guy who also he can just flash in training camp, and maybe you have no option but to promote these rookies to that starting spot. We'll see. All right, nickel corner. So nickel corner is a little bit weird here because last year it was Tyke Smith. Before that, you had Christian Izien. But Todd Bowles has stated that Tyke, they're trying him out as safety, but they don't seem to have as much confidence as many fans do with him at safety. So Bowles has stated that Tyke is a safety, but is always a nickel. So what exactly does he mean by that? We'll have to see as the offseason, as training camp, preseason, and week 1 arises. But Tyke is always a safety. The Buccaneers don't have a lot of depth at safety. So if Tyke is at nickel, who's playing back there opposite of alongside Winfield at that safety position? It's going to be J.J. Roberts. Is Shiloh Sanders making the team? Is it Kayvon Merriweather? Is it Christian Izien bouncing back? Is it Zion McCollum bouncing back? We'll see. But I don't think they have as much. I like Tyke Smith. I think he's an aggressive defensive back. I really like him. I think he's smart. I think they want to see him communicate. Really be a good communicator back there at that safety position. Jacob Parrish is one of those guys who Todd Bowles has mentioned who will be competing for that nickel position. Zion McCollum, he threw his name in there. Christian Izien, and he also threw the undrafted free agent J.J. Roberts in there as well. So one of these guys could come away as the starting nickel. We'll see what happens with that. Tyke is a safety, but is always a nickel. We'll see what Todd Bowles exactly means with that as we progress here. But the Buccaneers have a lot of versatility, at least at the corner position. They can mix and match. They can have, Zy McCollum. He's done it before. He can go back to safety. I think they're entering this year with a lot more versatility than they've had in prior years. I think they're a lot more confident in their pass rush with Hassan Reddick, Yaya Diaby, Chris Braswell, David Walker, Anthony Nelson. I think they're going in with a lot of good depth at those positions where before, and we saw it last, besides safety, I think they have a lot of depth there at the corner, outside backer, and even inside linebacker position. All right, so lastly, let's get to the schedule predictions. I'm going to go through each game. I'm going to give you guys my guess whether they'll win or they'll lose. Now, there's a lot of things that could happen before we even get to it, so these predictions are just predictions with how the current team is and how our opponents currently are as well. But you might have a situation in real life where Baker Mayfield goes down, or Mike Evans goes down, Tristan Wirfs goes down. We have a whole position group like last year with safeties who they get the injury bug, including Antoine Winfield. So these are predictions, but let's see. I think the Buccaneers are going to do good, but let's see exactly how I feel that they will do. Before we get to the actual regular season, we have the preseason. It's now 3 games instead of 4, of course. Week 1 and Week 2, we're facing the Tennessee Titans. And Week 2, the Buccaneers are going to face the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was revealed on the Peter Report podcast that we will have joint practices with the Titans and with the Steelers. Those are getting all set up there. And then Week 3, and Pittsburgh Steelers now will have Aaron Rodgers. That was a recent signing. So Week 1, we'll have joint practice with the rookie Cam Ward, the first overall selection. Week 2, veteran Aaron Rodgers. And then Week 3, the Buccaneers will go up against the Buffalo Bills. In the final week of the preseason, you're probably not going to see many starters. Probably won't see Josh Allen there. But let's enter the regular season here. In Week 1, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are away. They're in Atlanta. And they're facing it's a rivalry game. It's a division game. The Atlanta Falcons. Michael Penix Jr., he's going to be their starting cornerback there. The Falcons, they double dipped on edge rusher this year. We'll see if that helps out their defense, but I think Week 1, the Tampa Bay continue their streak of winning with Todd Bowles, winning these Week 1 games. I think that continues here, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers start the season off away 1-0. Week 2, the Buccaneers are away again. They're going to face CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. Now, this is going to be a much tougher game, in my opinion, than the Falcons. The Texans also just signed Nick Chubb, so they'll have a good running back combination there, duo with Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb. So that'll be an interesting combination to see in the run game. But I think the Buccaneers are pretty confident they can stop just about anybody in the run game. That's been really a specialty of Todd Bowles. But Week 2, Texans, I really think the Buccaneers come out on top here. Week 3, Justin Fields and the New York Jets come into Raymond James Stadium. This is going to be the home opener for the Buccaneers in Tampa. That'll be September 21st. This game, I believe that the Buccaneers are going to win pretty handily. I'm not a big believer in Justin Fields. I don't think that he's going to be the guy for the New York Jets at quarterback. I might be wrong, but he's played enough games. I've seen enough of his tape that I don't believe that he's going to be the game changer, the franchise quarterback in New York. I think the Buccaneers will win, and we start off 3-0 here to kick off the season. Now, we get the Week 4. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers face the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, over the last few years, the Buccaneers have always had the Eagles' number. Will that change this year? I don't believe so. I think the Buccaneers are going to be able to stop Jalen Hurts. They're going to be able to stop Saquon Barkley and their whole strong wide receiver core, their strong offensive line, their defense, which is all full of Georgia Bulldogs. I think this is going to be a very tough game, but it's going to be at home in Tampa. It's going to be at Sunday, 1 o'clock. The Eagles are going to have to deal with that heat. I think the Buccaneers start off 4-0 and beat Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles and the defending Super Bowl champions. All right, week 5 comes, and the Buccaneers are going to be away in Seattle. The Seahawks, they signed to a very big contract this offseason, Sam Darnold, who did a really good job with the Vikings last year. This could be a game that can go either way. I think, though, at the end of this, the Buccaneers do come out on top, and they start off 5-0. I think you see, it's a really strong performance on both sides of the offense and defense for the Buccaneers. I think they come away out of Seattle on top. Now, here we come. It's not going to be all victories. Now, here we come, week 6. The San Francisco 49ers come into Raymond James Stadium and face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Sunday, 1 o'clock. This is where I have the Buccaneers taking their very first loss of the season. I believe Brock Purdy's first start in NFL was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was a very ugly game for Tampa. I don't think the Todd Bowles has the number, the formula of how to beat Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. I think this is going to be the very, very first loss for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They start off 5-1, which is a very strong start, but of course, it's very hard to go undefeated, and I don't see them passing or beating the 49ers in this game here. All right, week 7, we have the Detroit Lions game. So the Detroit Lions, they've been, tough competition in the NFC. I think they're a Super Bowl contender, just kind of like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are, and the 49ers and the Eagles are. So they're at the top of the NFC. Now, the Lions, they lost their starting center recently. He just retired. They've lost their offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson went over to become the Bears head coach. They lost their defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, went over to New York, who we'll see week 3 here. So they've gone through a lot of losses, and important losses. You lost both your offense coordinator, your defense coordinator, your starting center, who was really the strong point of that offensive line, with Sewell on the right side, of course. But I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come out on top here, and the Buccaneers come out with a victory, go 6-1. So week 8 now. The New Orleans Saints. So the Buccaneers are playing New Orleans. No matter who the quarterback is for the Saints have always been an issue for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for some reason or another. I think they come out, no more Derek Carr, he retired. I think they come out, though, with a loss. I think the Buccaneers come out with a loss here again. The Saints have always been a tough matchup for the Bucs. I don't think the Saints are going to sweep the Bucs. We'll talk about that later. But here, at least in week 8 before the bye, in New Orleans, I think the Buccaneers are going to sustain a loss here. Week 9, pretty good bye week. Really in the middle of the season there. It's a good, I know Todd Bowles stated he liked it. I'm sure the players all like it. It's a mid-season bye. It's a perfect bye in my opinion. Week 9 there. Week 10 coming out of the bye. The Buccaneers going to face at home Drake May and the New England Patriots. New head coach Mike Vrabel. You get Drake May. They just signed Stephon Diggs, who's been having some off-field stuff there. But I still do not think that the offense and defense of the New England Patriots can keep up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think the Buccaneers come out with a victory there in Week 10 coming out of the bye. So at this point here, we got the Buccaneers winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 2 losses. So the Buccaneers are 7-2 heading into Week 11 against the Buffalo Bills, who we see twice. We see them in the preseason Week 3. We see them Week 11 here away. So we're playing in Buffalo. It'll be November 16th. I think that's early enough where it's not going to be a snow game. It's not going to be a blizzard game. But it is going to be a very interesting game there. I'm a big fan of Josh Allen. I think he's a very good quarterback, the MVP of last season, of course. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think this is a tough game. I feel like, honestly, it can go either way. But for this scenario here, I'm going to go with a Buccaneers loss here. So the Buccaneers will go into Week 12 at 7-3, which is still a very strong record, very good record. And the Buccaneers, if, maybe they lose here in week 11 against the Buffalo Bills, but they go on to, do really well in the playoffs and see them again, maybe in the Super Bowl. I think they're a Super Bowl contender over there in Buffalo. Week 12, we have the Buccaneers versus the LA Rams. It's an away game. Sean McVay, Stan Bradford, not Stan Bradford, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua. They just got Devontae Adams this offseason. This is one of those other games. This is one of those matchups where the Buccaneers, they've struggled recently over the past few years against the LA Rams. I think that they continue to struggle in this game, possibly, and they go into week 12 with the hopes of winning, of course, but they come out with a loss here. But things are going to get better for the Buccaneers, okay? So they were 7 and 1, 2, 3, 4. The 7 and 4 as they go into week 13 here. All right, week 13. At home, they get the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray. I don't think the Cardinals can compete with the Buccaneers. I don't think they have a good enough offense or defense to keep up. I don't think they will be a playoff team. Maybe they will be, but I think this is a pretty solid victory for the Buccaneers. Week 14, the Saints rematch. They lost again. I had them losing in week 8. I think now the Buccaneers, they get the better of them. And week 14, the Buccaneers win at home. So they're 8, they're 9 and 4 heading into week 15. Last year the Bucs were 10 and 7. Already at this point in my prediction, they're 9 and 4. All right, week 15, the Atlanta Falcons, they come in to Raymond James Stadium. I have the Buccaneers winning here, so it would be a let's see. I had them winning. Yeah, so it would be a full sweep. Last year, the Atlanta Falcons fully swept the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This year, I have the Buccaneers fully sweeping the Atlanta Falcons. And possibly, we'll see what happens with both the Falcons and Panthers. Will they move on from their head coaches? That's their teams that, oftentimes can be a bit impatient. So, will they keep Raheem Morris? Will they keep Dave Canales? We'll see, but, that story will play out as the season goes. We got week 16. Dave Canales coming in with the Carolina Panthers, and the Carolina Panthers, we don't see them all year until the very end of the year, and you have them almost back-to-back. Week 16, Carolina Panthers away. I have the Buccaneers winning that game there. That will be their 11th win of the season, 11 and 4 heading into week 17. Week 17, Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins. Is Tua going to be healthy at that point in the season? What's going to be going on? I think even if Tua's healthy, I think it's still a game that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win. I'm a big fan of Mike McDaniel and his offense, but I do think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come out on top here. So 12 victories, 4 losses, final week of the season against the Carolina Panthers at home, week 18. This one I have the Buccaneers losing. Now, it might be a situation where the Buccaneers have their starters resting, but all these division matchups are hard. All these opponents, they know us. Dave Canales knows Todd Bowles. He knows his defense. He practiced every day against his defense when he was here in Tampa for that year. I have the Buccaneers splitting with the Carolina Panthers. So, overall, the Buccaneers have a very, very solid season. They're going to go, in my prediction here, 12 and 5, which I think is, obviously very well here. That's a big improvement from last year, 10-7, 12 and 5. And the Buccaneers, for the 5th year in a row, I believe, are going to be the NFC South champions. I don't believe the Saints have what it takes on their roster to. They're always, a big cap dilemma there. Derek Carr retired. Of course, they drafted a second-round rookie. They have a few younger guys there as well. None of them are the true answer, I believe, for the Saints at the starting quarterback position. So I believe the Saints would probably come out 4th in the division. 3rd would be most likely Dave Canales and the Carolina Panthers with Bryce Young. Let's see if he continues to improve and progress as a quarterback. And then 2nd behind the Buccaneers, I have the Atlanta Falcons with Michael Penix. I think their defense takes another step forward this year. I think Michael Penix, hopefully, not for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' sake, but maybe he becomes a good quality starter for the Falcons. we'll see as this all continues and this plays out. But I want to thank you guys all for listening to the very, very first edition of the Fear the Bay podcast. Again, I'm your host, Daniel Morales. If you liked what you heard today, make sure you subscribe. Please comment. Please like. What do you guys think? How do you think the Buccaneers season is going to play out? Do you guys think that my prediction of 12-5 is good? Do you have the Buccaneers going, 11-6? Do you have them going, they're undefeated? What do you guys think? How do you guys think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to do this season? Let me know in the comments below. Again, if you liked, please hit the like button, subscribe, and let's continue this journey together. All right, guys, have a great day, and this is Daniel Morales, your host, signing out. Bye.